Good evening. I will call to order Wilsonville City Council meeting for October 5, 2020 at 7:02 p.m. and request a roll call, please.
Councilor Linville?
Here.
Councilor West?
Here.
Council President AKERVALL?
Here.
Councilor Lehan?
Here.
Mayor Knapp?
Here. Cosgrove, can you lead us in a pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please, the council, I'm open to a motion on order of agenda.
Your Honor, I move we approve the order of agenda.
Thank you. Motion by Councilor President AKERVALL. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Councilor Lehan. All in favor, please raise your hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously, 5 in favor. Bringing us to our upcoming meetings, which I'm a little behind the 8 ball on here. Let me get my other machine going. Let's see. This week, I have a committee meeting for the Metropolitan Mayors that I chair on transportation and land use for these Metropolitan Mayors. And we've just set that up to discuss our priorities for the upcoming year. And so we'll be getting that done this week. That Thursday, there's a Mayors and Chairs meeting coming up. Monday, we have Washington County Coordinating Committee meeting. Coordinating Committee meetings are important because they allow the representatives of all the different cities in the county to meet together and discuss their priorities. And frequently that is discussion about transportation projects or transportation funding mechanisms and what the priorities are for the county. So we are going to be doing that. Later this week, we have the League of Cities annual conference, which is happening, later the following week, next week. League of Cities will be a virtual conference again, and we'll have to see how that goes. There are also other things happening late next week, including the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee Subcommittee on Metro Cities, which is just the cities in the metro area. There's a Clackamas County Business Alliance meeting. There is a Metro JPAC meeting also focusing on transportation measures that's really important to Wilsonville. And then there's another CCBA meeting. So next week is going to be very busy, and hopefully we'll get through that fairly effectively. But I will report to you back when we've done so on things that might pertain or be of critical importance to Wilsonville. There's one other item on Mayor's business, and I would like to direct Council, if I can find it. Let's see, I'm on 7 of 244 tonight. Would like to recommend to you the appointment of Mr. Brian Everest for our Tourism Promotion Committee. He has an interesting background, which I don't have right in front of me, but if I'm remembering correctly, he is engaged with a couple of different winery operations here, but also has a personal background in the construction industry, in developing projects around the Portland area. I think he has time he spent with Holland Development and some other entities in that way. So he is on several levels, and we have a need for representation from the vintner industry, the wine industry, on our tourism committee, and I think he would be an excellent person to put into that position if council so chooses. Any questions or anyone that would like to make a motion?
Your Honor, I would, this is me. I would move that we appoint Brian Everest to the Tourism Promotion Committee. I'm not sure about the dates. I don't have it in front of me.
Position 6 for a term beginning today and extending through June 30, 2021.
2021. Yes, what he said.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor West. Thank you. Discussion? Councilor West?
I think Brian brings a lot to the city, and I think he is an intelligent guy that has shown himself well-versed on many city issues, and I look forward to watching him serve on this committee.
Thank you. Councilor Lehan, you're our liaison to that committee, is that correct?
Yeah, yes, I am, and I think likewise he will be a good addition. I have known Brian for a while, and it is good to have someone from the winery industry because a lot of our businesses in Wilsonville depend on those kinds of events. That's where our heads and beds come from. There's a lot of events that happen in wineries. Maybe not so much this last year, but hopefully that will pick up again as we go forward.
Yeah. I kind of off topic a little bit, but I heard a report, or I saw a report that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had visited some Oregon wineries when she was here, not that long ago, a couple years ago. So I thought that was, wow, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second then, and had discussion that council would like to have. All in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 I see 5 favorable, so that is unanimous for Mr. Everest. Thank you very much. And that really is all the mayor's business at this point. We had a communications item scheduled with the Clackamas County Sheriff, Craig Roberts, but he had something arise that he has not been able to attend tonight, so we will ask him to come back again another time when we can. But that will then bring us to our citizens input and community announcements section, which is an opportunity for visitors to address council on things not on the agenda. It is also a chance for time to address things that are on the agenda but not scheduled for public hearing. Staff and council will make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizens input, either before tonight's meeting ends or as soon as possible thereafter. We do request you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and we will ask you to use the raise hand feature on Zoom if there's anyone waiting that would like to provide comment. And I am told we have one such person at least waiting, Mr. Michael Robinson.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Everything's different from every meeting. How are you tonight? And by the way, Councilor Knapp and or Mayor Knapp and Councilor West, glad you saw the memo about the plaid shirt. So Dan Grimberg, I know, is interested in this, and he was watching this a few minutes ago. It may have been that he took an opportunity to get something to eat because he thought he was going to hear the sheriff's report. So if he doesn't come back on, I'll try and do the good job Dan would do. So, Mayor, we appreciated the report that Chris Namsu gave you. As he said, we've been working with both City Attorney Jacobson and Chris to come up with some language that was both fair to what we're trying to achieve and also recognize, Mayor, the same concerns you identified, which is we need to be able to fund these projects. So let me just say a couple of things, and maybe I'll start with this, because I talked with Dan about this a bit. If I were a lawyer being asked to review the title report for these properties, and these are not starter homes, they're reasonably expensive homes. If I saw this exception to title, which is what a waiver of remonstrance is, and my client asked me about it, I would say, well, look, it counts as a yes vote. You can still come to talk to council, but they have the yes vote, and that's ultimately what matters when they're setting up an LID. But the big thing I would tell my client is, and I don't mean this in a pejorative way, it's a blank check. You simply don't have any idea how much it's going to cost. You may never have an LID, but if you do, you don't know what it's going to cost. And that gives people pause, even people with relatively high incomes. They want to have certainty as to what they're going to be paying. So I think that's the thing Dan would communicate if he were here, is uncertainty that it causes potential home buyers, and neither he nor I can simply answer their questions. We don't know if an LID is ever going to be done. If it is, we don't know how long, what it's going to cost. It could be $500, it could be $5,000. The other thing, having listened to the work session discussion, I would emphasize is I think you have a very robust tool in the supplemental fees and the SDCs to accomplish the proportional funding, which is what this is all about. The fees right now, I think Dan said, total about $17,000, $18,000. In Frog Pond West, there's other fees, but the fees we're talking about tonight are about 17 or 18. As long as you can continue to make a proportionate finding for those fees, I think you're fine. And I heard from Chris that you're doing that kind of analysis to make sure you're asking for the right kind of fees. So I think Dan would say that this LID, apparently you haven't used it in a while, but this LID has enough uncertainty attached to it that it causes a number of home buyers to pause about this issue. And so we think the template we came up with is a fair compromise. It requires the fees to be paid, and then we have the ability to record a document, and it's Barbara's right, it's just a standard template that we would develop. We probably already have one floating around somewhere that releases the waiver and it gets recorded, and so the obligation under title goes away. So, Mayor, that's all I had. Thank you for giving me 3 minutes. If Dan wants to pop up, I hope you will give him a chance to talk as well.
Yeah, we could do that. Based on our discussion at work session, and we thought that if any of council wanted to ask a specific question of you, would you be prepared for that at this point?
Yes, sir.
Council, is there any additional information or response that you would look to Mr. Robinson as representative of West Hills Development for at this point? I'm not sure. I've got all you councilors on the screen here. There we go. Councilor President AKERVALL.
Thank you. I believe you mentioned that you listened to our conversation during work session. So one of the things that we spoke about is how might this work for people that have already purchased their homes, and how do we bridge to the people, you know, that may already be in their homes. And I'm wondering if you've had conversations yourself about that and how you think that might work smoothly for them to, I guess, come into this new situation as well.
Council President, that's a good question. I've not discussed that with anybody. I read that discussion in the staff report to council, and I thought it was intriguing and frankly fair and equitable. I listened to the discussion. I think the simplest way is to, as Chris suggested, have a letter go out to the homeowners. We know who's recorded the waiver because it's a matter of public record, and apprise them of this opportunity. You know, I suspect most would take advantage to waive it, but who knows, some might not care. I don't know. A lot of people throw letters from local governments away. So, but I guess most would take advantage of it. And I think it's a pretty simple measure. I don't think it's burdensome, but I would echo what I said at the beginning. I think it's an equitable way for people that have already recorded the waiver against their title.
Any other questions for Mr. Robinson? Well, Well, I'm seeing none at this point. I thought we had a robust discussion in work session, which you heard then, sir, and the work that staff is doing is important, I'm sure, to the city and also to the developers to be sure that these capital improvement projects get done along with their development or their home that's being done in a new site there. So it's got to be a partnership.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Staff, is there anyone else ready to have citizen input tonight?
Do you have nothing? No. That's it, Mayor.
That's it. All right. Thank you very much. We will move along then to councilor comments, liaison reports, and meeting announcements. And I would invite Councilor President AKERVALL, first of all.
Thank you. There are a few community events that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention that are going to be coming up in just these next few days. The first is the Harvest Festival programming that our Parks and Rec department has organized. And it really is, I think it's quite exciting. They have many different activities for different age groups as well, things from special story times for our very youngest community members, baby time, toddler times, but also some events for 55 plus crowd as well. So full spectrum, drive events where people can do social distancing and have it be a safe holiday activity. They're going to do some Find the Pumpkin activities in the parks, which is exciting and fun, very creative. Chalk the Park event again, which was a great kind of series that they did this last summer, but this time also with costumes, I believe. So definitely check that out and look for ways that we can be safe during the holiday coming up and still have some fun in our community. Several virtual contests as well with some pretty awesome prizes, I would say. They have all that information and photos posted on their website. The next thing is Kindergarten Carnival that's being done at the library right now, and there's still a few days left, I believe, to pick up your packet. That is going to, I think all the challenges are due for that on October 9th for the prizes or the rewards for participation with that. But also on the 9th is a book donation that's happening for our Friends of the Library, the bookshop that they usually have. We actually had some comments earlier about the number of books we all have in our garages and homes and living rooms and things like that, right? So we could bring a bag over to the library between 2 and 6 p.m. on the 9th. That's Wednesday, right? Is it? No, it's not. But I thought it was on a Wednesday. So we should all go to the library website and check that out. I believe it's on Wednesday, 2 to 6 p.m., but let's double check.
No, it's Friday.
Is it on Friday? Okay, it's on Friday. They had to reschedule it because it was originally scheduled during the all of the smoke that we had from the wildfires. So what they're trying to do is restock their inventory because during this COVID period, they've been able to sell some of the books online, I believe, and they need more inventory, which is great news because we want to support them in raising funds for our library. So I think that we're going to be having a bag of books that we can bring over and drop off, and I bet there's many other people that may have something like that as well. And then the last item, I guess, that I'm looking forward to before our next council meeting is the LOC conference. And the mayor mentioned that, and I plan on attending. I look forward to that. Yes, it will be a virtual event this year, so it will feel a little different because in the past, some of the great benefit is to be able to build relationships with people from other cities, cities in our area here near Portland, also cities all across Oregon and rural communities and, different landscapes and needs and hear from them and hear what's going on in their hometowns as well. But looking at the topics for this year's conference, I think there's going to be a lot of really great material. So I'm definitely looking forward to participating in that conference and learning. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, so your enthusiastic presentation about the Parks Department stuff, where do people find out about that now exactly?
Yeah, go to the Parks and Rec. Is it in the Boones Ferry Messenger as well? But go to their website and you can see a calendar. Maybe that's in Boones Ferry. Councilor West, if you can find the calendar, it starts on the 14th through the 28th, I believe, is the last day. So there's different events, I think, on nearly every day. So go and find the event that brings your interest, okay? Looks like perhaps something there.
That's helpful. There's a whole part on Parks and Recs that all these fun events.
But if you click on Harvest Festival, there we go. That's the graphic you want, the full moon with the owl. Keep looking for that graphic and you'll find all of the information. Do we get to scroll down and look at the prices?
There's the calendar.
Prices are awesome. Yeah, there's the calendar.
Yeah.
I just thought that they did a tremendous job of being creative, trying to have events that are, within the state's guidelines of safety and opportunity to do something fun as a community.
Yeah. And it looks like that we're being shown the picture from what's on the Wilsonville Parks and Rec website currently. So lots of good information there. Don't let it pass you by. Councilor Lehan, are you wanting to report?
Unmute myself. Yes, I was, I haven't seen it, but I heard that I was on KGW this evening news for a cemetery spot that they did because October is supposed to be Historic Cemetery Appreciation Month. And of course, we are leading up to Halloween and the Day of the Dead celebrations, Dios de Muertos. Anyway, I did that spot. It will probably replay again tomorrow on a couple of the KGW spots, but I met their camera person up at the cemetery, at Pleasant View Cemetery, and, filled him in on a few things up there. And so I would invite people in the month of October to visit their local cemeteries. We have several fabulous cemeteries around us, and since we don't have any in the city of Wilsonville, it's good to visit the ones that are near us. Pleasant View Cemetery has the most, but there's also Meridian and Robert Byrd over in the Stafford area. So that's where most of Wilsonville's founding mothers and fathers are located. So it is worth doing a little scouting around, especially when the weather is this nice. So,
Charlotte, do people have an easy source to find the exact locations of those?
Well, you can always go on Find a Grave and look for, and it will just pop up cemeteries in your area. And there they will be on the map, and then you can go to any one. But Meridian is out on 65th, just north of Ellickson. So go up past Ellickson on 65th, and you'll run into Meridian. That's the one that used to be at the Frog Pond Church, but was picked up and moved up the road. And Pleasant View is about 2 miles west of Bilbois, and between here and Sherwood. And that's a big one. We have about 3,000 residents, permanent residents there. So.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor West, do you have a report for us tonight?
Can you guys hear me there? Sorry about that. Great last couple of weeks with Wilsonville Wednesdays, able to really highlight a few of the businesses that were very much awesome contributors to our community. So that's been great. We're 20 plus episodes now since we started this endeavor to try to help small businesses be tethered to the community and highlight them. You can go to Wilsonville Wednesdays on YouTube and really check out all the different businesses and nonprofits, organizations that contribute to making Wilsonville a fantastic city. So that's been a lot of fun. I want to just piggyback a little bit on what Councilor AKERVALL talked about, and I was posting on this a little bit all week and trying to have conversations with the community about CDC government guidelines and holiday celebrations as we move forward. Some of the things that make Wilsonville so appealing and attractive is, at least in Villeball, Halloween is off the hook in Villeball historically. It's a great fun time for parents and everybody house to house, cocktail or beverage in hand with kids running around in costumes and dry leaves and the spooky moon. And we have a great reputation here, but it's a little different this year. And so if you want to check out how to do your own family celebration, please check out cdc.gov. There's a special spot there just for Halloween and all the rest. And I want to talk about also the bulk waste day coming up on 10/10 before our next meeting. That's super popular, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. On Ritter Road there. And then we haven't said much about this, but Wilsonville Citizens Academy, both Councilor AKERVALL and myself are graduates of that program. We both speak very highly of it. I think most people that get through that, from what I've heard, I've actually never heard a negative thing about it. Everybody speaks positively of it. It's a great way to engage. And those application deadlines to get engaged in your city, what a great way to do it is Saturday, October 31st on Halloween. So just wanted to remind everybody of that, and let's find creative ways and innovative ways to celebrate and have a fun, exciting time as we go into the holiday season.
Okay, thank you very much. And Councilor Linville.
Well, I almost don't have anything else to report. Everybody's given my report, which is just wonderful. I mentioned at our last meeting my concern about the lack of a renter moratorium and concern that the current moratorium was going to expire at the end of September. And I did a little work with the Wilsonville Community Sharing to help them get them kind of geared up to use the CDC's process. And then the governor extended the renter moratorium in Oregon at the 11th hour, which was just great. So now it is the renter eviction moratorium is now extended until the end of December. So that's been a really good thing. And we still have some issues because those folks, as well, renters, as well as those people that have been having their mortgages have been involved in a moratorium over mortgages, have still been accruing that debt. And eventually, at some point, that's a potential for a crisis, I think, for our citizens. So we just need to kind of keep that out there in our sight. I did want to mention that the Councilor Lehan and I serve as liaisons to the Arts, Culture, and Historic Strategy Task Force. And the city is accepting public comment on that draft plan through it's online at the city's website at Arts and Culture Strategy through October 20th. And that will come to the council for discussion on the 19th of October, and then for a final decision and adoption after public comment on the 16th of November. I have a friend here who all of a sudden wants my attention. Also, I misspoke, Councilor AKERVALL. The last day for the book donations is actually Wednesday the 7th for the library, so we don't want to miss that. My garage would love to get rid of some books, so I think it's a grand idea. And other than that, I did want to mention that the farmers market is now out at Charbonneau, and it is functioning until the 16th of October on Friday evenings. and I believe it's from 3 until 7, and grand event. Much of our same vendors that participated in our farmers market at the Memorial Park are also participating in the event in Charbonneau. And the nice part is that the majority of it is undercover. So that will be great should the weather change on us. And, Your Honor, that is my report.
Thank you very much. I wanted to ask you, as the city's representative to the Willamette Falls Locks Group, is there any activity there or kind of it's a real brief status?
The Locks Commission met, I think I reported on that, I think 2 or 3 meetings ago. And we just had a status update meeting, and there is not, it's not very optimistic that there's going to be money forthcoming through the legislature in anytime soon for that project. So I think we're just going to monitor and hope that we can move something forward. But the commission, I think, will stay on this. The staff that were being hired by the funding are gone now. And so it's a bit of a limping along at this point. So.
Mayor Axelrod, the mayor of West Lynn, I think, is chairing on that. Is that right? And he had been talking to other mayors about trying to have joint voice in a way of talking about the urgency and the benefits if we were able to move forward on the locks projects. Some of that discussion may ultimately move to the federal level, I think, and wondering if we can find a channel to obtain federal funding for that project. But it's a big deal, and it's a big ask, and it takes time to put all those pieces together. So I appreciate you representing the city on that group. I think it continues to be important. Okay, that brings us to our consent agenda items. I think there's a couple of different things on there. Could I ask for consent agenda to be read, please?
Resolution number 2852, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville authorizing South Metro Area Regional Transit Smart to purchase 1 CNG fueled trolley from Creative Bus Sales. Minutes of the September 16, 2019, October 21, 2019, December 16, 2019, and September 10, 2020 City Council meeting minutes.
Thank you. Council, is there a motion on consent? Council President AKERVALL.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Motion by Councilor AKERVALL. Councilor Linville?
I second the motion.
Second from Councilor Linville. Thank you very much. All in favor of motion to adopt consent agenda, approve consent agenda, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote, 5 in favor. Thank you very much. Next item up is our new business, and we're doing really good on our time schedule here tonight. Resolution 2842.
Resolution number 2842, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville revising the template for a development and annexation agreement for Frog Pond West development and amending resolution number 2649.
Thank you. Mr. Namsu.
Thank you, Mayor Knapp. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here and see if I can get my slideshow going.
There it comes.
There we go. Thank you. Very much, Mayor Knapp, members of the City Council. I'm Chris Namsu, the city's Community Development Director, and this evening I am here to present to you Resolution number 2842, which is a minor amendment to the development agreement template for Frog Pond West. I wanted to provide a little bit of background for you, a little bit of context. The city adopted the Frog Pond West Master Plan via ordinance number 806 in 2017. Accompanying that entire package of documents, that master plan document, was the Frog Pond West Supplemental Infrastructure Fee that was adopted via resolution number 2649. That was also accompanying the master plan back in 2017. The infrastructure supplemental fee that was adopted was the very first infrastructure supplemental fee that Wilsonville had adopted. And in the case of Frog Pond West, that fee was specifically identified to pay for 5 very specific projects. It was intended to pay for the frontages of Frog Pond West along Beckman Road and along Stafford Road, as well as included funding for a future neighborhood park, in addition to some oversized pipelines, water and sewer pipelines in both Beckman and Stafford Road. There was a standard development agreement template that was created that staff wrote that accompanied the supplemental infrastructure fee. That document was adopted with resolution number 2649. Staff is before you this evening with a proposed addition to the development agreement template. Therefore, we need to take formal action in order to modify that development agreement template. So tonight's resolution does just that. It creates a new paragraph in that development agreement template. I'd like to go through the requirements first before we get to that and identify what it is we're trying to address, which is the city's requirement, which is found in section 4.177. It's the street improvement standards section of the development code, which requires a waiver of remonstrance against the formation of a local improvement district be recorded against each lot prior to signing of a final plat. The language from that section is included in the middle of the slide there, and I will not bother to read that. That's there for your information. And one of our developers, West Hills Development Arbor Custom Homes, has requested that the waiver be released upon payment of the supplemental infrastructure fee. We had a good discussion about this in work session. Mr. Robinson provided some additional context and testimony for you under citizen input, and he is correct that the fee is upwards of $18,000 per lot, and that $18,000 is dedicated to the proportional share of those 5 infrastructure projects that I previously identified. The challenge that's been identified is that the requirement, the waiver of remonstrance requirement, is causing concerns with some of their home buyers. The requirement resulted in an encumbrance on title and represents a continuing and uncertain obligation on the lots, in addition to the potential for undefined LID assessments. The developer is concerned with the uncertainty. It's basically the timing of future LIDs, the number of LIDs, and the future costs associated with those potential LIDs, related to the requirement to waive that requirement to remonstrate, which is essentially to object. Remonstrate means to object to the formation of an LID. As those costs and those projects cannot be meaningfully quantified today, City has no plan for an LID as the primary infrastructure has been provided to this project. The Frog Pond West supplemental infrastructure fee would cover the proportional cost of the frontage roads per lot. And it's important to note that the waiver of remonstrance still applies to the developed lots until such time as the supplemental infrastructure fee is paid. In context, the idea would be that it would be lifted at that point that the fee was paid, therefore satisfying the obligation to provide transportation infrastructure for that project. The proposed amendment language would be contained in a new section 4.3 that would be titled Release of Restrictive Covenant Waiving Right of Remonstrance for Formation of Local Improvement District. I'm going to read this just to be abundantly clear on what the proposal is trying to achieve. Upon payment of the infrastructure supplemental fee and the Beckman Bridge fee, if applicable, for a specific parcel, developer may request the city release the restrictive covenant waiving right of remonstrance or formation of local improvement district. It's known as the waiver of remonstrance that has been recorded against the parcel. The city shall agree to release the waiver of remonstrance upon the city's determination that developer has complied with the requirements of this section for release. Developer is responsible for providing a legal description for the specific parcel and paying any and all costs and fees, including recording fees, incurred by the city to release the waiver of remonstrance. And again, the logic is that once the infrastructure supplemental fee is paid, that lot will have paid their proportionate share of the transportation costs needed to serve the project, specifically those frontage costs, and a future local improvement district would not be necessary. The applicability section, it would apply to all of the developers in Frog Pond West. So if this proposal were accepted and adopted this evening, I would reach out to all of the various developers out there. Right now we have 2 primary developers, but we also have a number of existing homeowners who are occupying homes where the fee is paid. The waiver, the release opportunity would apply to those property owners who have already had that requirement recorded against their title. I would personally write a letter to those folks and let them know that this adjustment had been made, provide them with a templated form that would allow them to go forward and pursue that release on their title. And all previously approved development agreements would be eligible for the modification and release of the waiver as well. And we do development agreements typically with each of the major subdivision projects. And so there are a number of those out there. And again, I would be offering it to those developers who have executed development agreements. And if they decided they wanted to include this new language, we would go through a process to create a new development agreement and essentially include the new language for everybody so that it would apply to everybody in Frog Pond West. That's essentially all that I have for you this evening. I'm more than happy to try to answer any specific questions that you have regarding the proposal. It's, again, a resolution adopting an amendment, a minor amendment to the development agreement template for Frog Pond West. Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to try to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Namsu. Council, questions for staff with regard to this proposal in front of us tonight? Gee, we had such a robust discussion in work session that maybe we covered them. Council President AKERVALL.
I'll do one question, just out of abundance of caution and detail. Can we go back to the one slide where you read the text? Yeah, there we go. So on this, in the new section 4.3, I understand this text, and it's all referring to the developer. So in the next slide, where we're owners, again, that have already purchased their home, do we need anything referring to that group specifically in this text, or is it fine?
No, that's a great question. So this language goes into the development agreement, which is a document that we enter into with the actual developers. So the actual development agreements are not entered into with the individual property owner.
Right, right.
So your resolution for acceptance of this proposal tonight does include language that addresses the property owner. So it makes it clear in the adopting resolution that that would be the situation. So this language does not need to manifest itself in any other location other than in those formal development agreements with the developer. The resolution should cover everything else for clarity.
That makes sense. So this is just used with the development, that paragraph here, just with the development agreement. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question or comments? Councilor Linville.
Well, I think in our discussion, and I thank you, Mr. Namsu, for the thoroughness of your presentation in our work session, because I think you helped to make this what might otherwise be kind of a complicated language issue pretty clear to us. So thank you. I think it's important to kind of note that this developer has probably brought to our attention the need to rethink some of our current code and how the waiver of remonstrance might either function in the future or be part of some kind of an update to our current code. So I think this is it is nice to see that that we have looked at the infrastructure supplemental fee to the degree that we think that it would cover what otherwise might have to be brought up at a later time. And I think if we can keep our recording of plats free of an encumbrance for our citizens, I think that's good public policy.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think that the applicant's contention is persuasive that the uncertainty going forward for someone to buy a house and have this deed restriction listed for a unspecified dollar amount at a unspecified future time might or might not occur, and might or might not occur more than once, is quite an uncertainty. And by transferring that to become a certain cost on the front end, I think that that's an improvement and an equity kind of an issue for buyers in knowing what their exposure is. Certainly it's important that we do the appropriate development of the streets, sidewalks, and other infrastructure surrounding these new homes. I think that the developer will share that goal with us. And while nobody likes paying fees, it's important to know that the funding for those projects is provided for and that they will happen. So I understand this, and I think that it's helpful for people. All right, Council, if there's no further questions for staff, and we have the question of what is your pleasure with regard to Resolution 2842? Councilor President AKERVALL.
I move to approve resolution number 2842.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilor Linville.
Your Honor, I'll second that motion.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Any additional discussion, I guess I should say. If not, I will ask for the vote. All in favor of the motion to adopt Resolution 2842, please signify by raising your hand. Say aye.
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 I have 5 positive votes, so it's unanimous in favor. Thank you very much.
Mayor now. Council.
Okay, that brings us then to resolution number 2853.
Resolution number 2853, a resolution of the City of Wilsonville to select the preferred bridge alternative for the I-5 pedestrian bridge project.
Good evening, Mayor Knapp. My name is Zach Weigel, Capital Projects Engineering Manager, and with me tonight virtually is our project leads, Alex Dupuy with MIG and Bob Goodrich with Dow and other members of the design team. And as Ms. Jacobson said, we have before you tonight a resolution identifying the preferred bridge design alternative for the I-5 pedestrian bridge project. To help you with your decision tonight, the design team is going to give you a brief summary of the project history and then kind of walk through the public involvement that we did in August on the bridge types, and then give you a summary of the Planning Commission feedback that we received in September. So again, the decision before you tonight is to select the preferred bridge design. Also, we'd like to get some feedback if you have any on the plaza and bridge elements moving forward. So with that, I'll turn it over to Alex, and thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody, and thanks for having us back to talk to you about the bridge and the plaza concepts. Once again, my name is Alex Dupuy. I'm with MIG. Myself and Casey Howard will be presenting tonight both the bridge alternatives as well as the plaza and approach concepts. Bob Goodrich is also here, so if there are specific questions about any bridge elements, costing, things like that, I'll very much defer to him to provide that expertise. And then Melissa Erickson is with us as well, who's our design lead, and can answer any specific questions about the plaza. So with that, Casey, can you share your screen and we'll start. Great, thank you. Since our last meeting just a couple weeks ago, we've thought a lot about this project and to be able to answer some of the questions that came through for the work session that we had with you just about a couple weeks ago. So this presentation should incorporate much of that input. If there's any questions or additional information that you have, feel free to stop us. We'll be happy to answer any questions the best we can. Our goal tonight is to get direction from you on the bridge itself so that we can enter into more refined design. And getting to that point, actually, I think will help answer some of the questions that came up during the work session. We need to get into a little bit more specificity so we get into specific elements like cost, details, those types of things. So we do need input on which design for the bridge to advance. The same is true for the plaza design approach. Based on the public feedback, there was a lot of discussion about how we combine concepts for drops and ripples and river oxbow. We'd like the confirmation from you if that is true for that direction. And then finally, there's a number of specific elements that we've talked to the city, or the community, planning commission and city council about the certain types of elements that will be part of the bridge as well as the plaza. So that is the other piece of direction that we would like from you this evening. So 3 key elements that are really essential for us to move the project into more formal design. Just as a quick reminder of where this project came from, you've been talking about this project for over 50 years. Since 1973, the original concept plan actually had a pedestrian bridge over I-5, and in not too different of a location than what we're actually proposing now. It's a key location to be able to connect the east and west of Wilsonville, as well as more recently, the transit center and then the existing and future development within town center itself. So you've been talking about this for a long time, and over the course of the past, say last 15 or 20 years or so, the project has become more focused and more visual in terms of the types of elements needed to be a part of this. As a part of the bicycle and pedestrian master plan, it was identified as a need in 2006. It's a high priority project within your transportation system plan as of 2013, and then most recently within the town center plan itself, which was adopted just about a year ago. It's continued to be moved forward, in this case, as a framework project, as an essential element that really is the foundation for much of the development and the connectivity proposed, not just within that plan, but really building on the stuff that's happened over the past 10 or 15 years since then. As a part of that plan, or in conjunction with that plan, property was acquired for the bridge landing and the future plaza site. So the site that you see within town center is that parcel that was acquired in 2019. So that's the site that you've already purchased. And then most recently, and what is funding this project is the Metro Regional Flexible Fund grants. And so that's how this project has continued to move forward, going essentially from what was a hand-drawn sketch in 1973 to engineered drawings where we're at today. As Zach mentioned, we had done a lot of public engagement in August to really start to refine what the themes and elements of the project are, getting down to specific types of things that would go into a more specific bridge and plaza element. We had a great turnout for the online survey. We had almost 300 participants, which is about 2.5 times higher than what we had from the survey in February. So that was a great turnout. It means people are definitely interested in this. It also means that it's visible and people are interested in seeing what the outcomes are. We had 3 virtual open houses. We had one at 12, one at 4, and one at 6 p.m. And we had about 50 participants for that survey, or excuse me, for that open house. The online survey and the open house asked similar questions. So the nice thing about that was we were able to compare the different responses for each of these types of questions asked. So when you see the amalgamation of these responses, it is both the online survey as well as the open house. The responses were very consistent across the board. Next slide, please. Just a couple of considerations before we get into some of the detailed responses. We had a number of open-ended questions as a part of the survey, also part of the conversation as a part of the open houses. And overall, there's a strong degree of support for the project. People are very focused on kind of the health, the safety, and the access that a project of this type can bring. People are very interested in what type of design elements are a part of that, which is one reason why we were asking that, because the question around theme and identity is what defines Wilsonville. What are the types of things that really could make this project stand out and become this key element as a gateway into the community. But there are also concerns about cost. Some people don't like the project. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody, but overall, we've had a very positive response from the survey respondents with a lot of great recommendations and suggestions for how the bridge is constructed and designed. So I'm going to step through the 3 bridge alternatives that we have now, starting with the first one, or excuse me, with this first slide, just to give you a sense of the key elements of the project. There are 3 main elements of the project itself. There's the west ramp, which is shown here primarily in its preferred alignment. There isn't a lot of space on the west side. There's fewer options there, so we've chosen to focus primarily on a pedestrian bridge on the east side, where there are a lot more decisions to be made. There were some questions at the work session a couple weeks ago about how that functions and how that'll connect down into Boone's Ferry. There is existing right-of-way to be able to use there, and there will be a solid connection both into the existing multimodal system as well as the transit center. That's the key goal, is to make that connection. As we get into design, that will be refined more, but that's the key kind of element of the west side ramp. The pedestrian bridge, we looked at 3 options: tight arch, cable stay, and modern artistic. And then within the plaza area, we looked at a number of different elements for how the ramps might be located and designed, different types of articulation, as well as urban design and landscape elements within the plaza. Next slide, please. So just to give you some visualization for what these bridge types look like, this is the tight arch. This is, all 3 of these bridges are in generally the same location for this design. But you can see there's 2 kind of swooping arches with this bridge. And when you look at it from, either a vehicle standpoint or as a pedestrian or a cyclist, it does evoke kind of a unique, kind of classic, feel to it in terms of design. It's very clean. It's a nice looking bridge, and with the 2 arches, it's a unique bridge type for along I-5. Next slide. This slide is the modern artistic, and this was one that, from the public engagement, people really love this bridge or they really don't like this bridge. So it had I think the starkest degree of difference, but also highly ranked, along with the tight arch, are the 2 bridge types that received the highest ranking or preference from both the survey and the open houses. But the difference with this is really its artistic qualities. It's particularly as a pedestrian or a cyclist, it's a much different experience if you're on the bridge as opposed to if you're driving or even looking at it from a bird's eye angle. So it's something to consider what that materiality is like. That's definitely something that if this were selected, there would be a lot of thought put into those specific pieces. But it's a much different feel than what you have with the tight arch. Next slide. And then finally, the cable stay. The unique pieces about the cable stay are really the cable elements and how they're braided through the design of the bridge. It has a single kind of arch or tier in the beginning or in the middle holding the bridge. But again, similar to what you'd see with the tight arch, it's a much more open type of design. As a pedestrian or cyclist, you have a different feel to that. This bridge was the 3rd out of 3 in terms of what people preferred for the bridge type. Still a lot of votes for liking it, but it was definitely not close to the first and second for the tied arch and the modern artistic. So just to show you, some of the results for each of these bridge types, we asked, in addition to the specific elements and what you like the most or what you don't like, really a couple other things that we had talked about early on in this project is kind of how does this structure or this project define Wilsonville in this location, and what are the specific themes that we would that could potentially be used to really evoke that quality. And what we found was with the tied arch and the modern artistic, the definitely's are both very strong. But when I was saying it's a love-hate relationship with the modern artistic, it's actually about the same amount of people really love both the tied arch and the modern artistic, but there's a stronger contingent of people who really don't like the modern artistic. But overall, if you look at the very much like, we definitely like this, it's about the same. So it's just an interesting way how those two came to be. Cable stay is a little bit more neutral. People like that, but it was more in the middle, like maybe not, we're not sure. But the tied arch and the modern artistic definitely were iconic and showing that defining structure. In terms of themes that evoke Wilsonville, the modern artistic was from definitely ranked higher than what we saw with the tied arch. Although I would say that overall, the tied arch had more support from the maybe to the definitely, as opposed to, again, the modern artistic coming at it with I really like it or I really don't like it. So there's less of a middle ground with that bridge. But both bridges score very highly with the community. And then again, the cable stay is a bit neutral on that theme that evokes Wilsonville. In terms of preference, overall, the lower score is the higher of the preference. So ranked by preference, the tied arch at 1.73, the modern artistic at 2.6, and the cable stay at 2.19. And so again, you're seeing, tied arch is slightly higher, with the modern artistic coming in the middle. In terms of cost, of course, everybody likes the most expensive elements. It's kind of universal, I think, for whatever we do. But there is quite a range between these bridge types. And I think if you look at the tied arch, between 8.5 and 10.4, and the cable stay is kind of in the middle, the modern artistic is the least expensive. There is a range there. And I think when you look at what types of materials could be involved in design with that, I think there's not a big difference between all of these bridges if you start to think of this as a 50 to 75 year structure. This will outlast all of us. And so when you think about that cost, yes, it is expensive, but overall, there's not a huge difference between the two for a structure with this lifespan. So the final question we asked, we asked about a number of different elements for the bridge types, like what are the types of things that might make the bridge unique? The bridge is going to have certain things like safety railings. It's going to have bends. It's going to have different types of elements just to be a bridge. But there are specific elements that could be specifically unique to the structure. And overall lighting came out number one and number two, whether it's illuminating the structure itself or even just illuminating the lighting along the bridge in different ways. So if you think about like the Telecom Bridge, that has a very specific lighting pattern for its overall structure. Another piece that scored highly in third was custom safety fencing. So if we think about that in combination with art being very important, but also those unique qualities, custom safety fencing could also be something that we could look at to make that bridge structure unique. And how that ties in with lighting or some of the other elements that people felt strongly about is something that we would consider as we get further into design. So lots of good stuff to consider as we move forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Casey, who's going to talk about the ramp and plaza alternatives.
Thank you. So for the plaza, we had these three concepts, which were meant to be more of a mix and match approach, so kind of a kit of parts, but we wanted to present three options that gave people a little inspiration and helped them visualize how these different plaza elements might come together. And so what we found consistently between the online survey and the virtual open house was that the drops and ripples and the river oxbow concepts were effectively tied as the preferred concepts, with the gateway loop lagging a bit behind. There's a little bit more support for the river oxbow in terms of what evokes Wilsonville strongly. And the drops and ripples has a slightly better score on the ranking, but they are effectively tied. And people responded well to certain elements that we see in the next slide, which is our breakdown of a sort of visual preference survey of plaza elements. And so we're seeing that people are responding really strongly to supporting interactive art, potentially with smaller multiple installations and even murals or mosaics. And then in terms of sustainable features, people are really drawn to more of an ecological focus, so planting for biodiversity or habitat, climate adapted planting, which would be kind of a low water, low maintenance approach, and enhanced stormwater planters. For the planting style itself, though, I think it's a strong reflection of what you see in the Wilsonville Town Center, which is a more formal approach to a tree alley along the ramp and formal planting areas, potentially with the addition of green walls. In terms of shelter, people were actually gravitating towards just having an extensive tree canopy to provide shade and protection, or potentially a more modern artistic shelter. And with gathering, we see people drawn to having multiple smaller spaces, and they really shied away from having a large hardscape plaza area. And even we're drawn to some of these more transitional space approaches, which would be kind of a promenade, where there's movement through the space and maybe some seating along the side, but it's primarily for getting people through the space. And in terms of the bridge approach, which is essentially the ramp shape, people are really concerned about having a ramp that provides the most effective sound and visual buffering from I-5. And then also they're drawn to the long swooping ramp, which we see in both the River Oxbow and the Drops and Ripples concepts. The spiral ramp that we saw in the Gateway Loop ranks considerably lower comparatively. So these are essentially the plaza elements that we will be combining into a single design to merge the concepts of the Drops and Ripples and the River Oxbow to evoke Wilsonville and retain some of these ecological elements, but also create a clean, contemporary, inviting space for people to gather and move through. And so based on our feedback from the Planning Commission, they essentially agreed with what the public was putting forward in terms of their preferences. They were also in agreement that the tied arch was the best option in terms of the bridge alternatives. There was a brief discussion about cost considerations, with kind of the counter argument that Alex mentioned that this is a 50 to 75 year project, and so that slight difference in pricing in the long term may not be as big of a factor in deciding which option to move forward. They agreed with the custom bridge features that the public selected, and they also agreed with the combination approach of doing the Drops and Ripples and River Oxbow into one design. And we just talked through a bit of those design elements and how to respond to what people are wanting. And then in terms of other plaza elements to consider, they did not have any to put forward. So that's pretty straightforward. And we're back to our questions.
Great. Thank you, Casey.
Is that your presentation?
That is, thank you. So we'd be happy to answer any questions for you or from you.
Okay, all right, sounds good. So council, very robust and detailed presentation here. Do you have questions for our consulting team at this point? And I don't know if I have everybody's picture up here, so if I can see you. Councilor, here we go, that's better. Councilor West.
Thank you for that great presentation. I think a while back I may have asked this question, but like clarification. I agree that lighting, in my opinion, is also the most important feature to maybe focus on. The option with the blue ribbon river running through it, is there any discussion about that river being lit or LED'd or even kind of moving like water, or that specific element changing with holiday seasons or civic events to match? Can that be like living, moving art on the bridge itself?
I think the answer would be yes. I think there's probably a couple considerations, and Bob, help me here in just a second. I think the cool thing about the modern artistic bridge is that you do have a number of elements that you could that could be temporary elements like lighting, like being able to change that over time. There could be different specific ways to address the qualities of that ribbon, as well as the bridge angle. So yes, I think there is a lot of flexibility with that and how that's done. I think the question, and Bob, maybe you can help me, is from an ODOT standpoint. I think because it is over a freeway, there may be some considerations that we would have to look at for that. But I think overall, yeah, you could certainly look at those types of pieces with the modern artistic.
Yeah, there would definitely be some coordination with ODOT. They don't have specific or set out lighting standards that would address what is and is not permissible, so there'd be a coordination effort moving forward. And I mean, that's a great example of one of many for that bridge option that, really influences the initial costs and then long-term maintenance costs, right? Because if you have 300 or 400 feet of LEDs in that, waving sinuous pattern, there's just more cost up front and then more cost to maintain that. And so those cost ranges, are just, you'd just start creeping up, those ranges that we showed a little bit ago, but definitely feasible.
Other questions or comments? Councilor Linville.
Well, I think Councilor West, just to follow up on Councilor West's question, do any of the bridge types preclude changes in lighting and movement of lighting?
No.
I mean, they would be possible, I would believe, in all of those.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think getting to Councilor West's question about kind of the unique elements of the modern artistic, those could have very specific lighting types. But yeah, the bridges themselves, any of them could be lit in a number of ways.
Okay.
I would like to make a comment, and then I'll pass to Councilor AKERVALL after that, since she's raised her hand also. I had some experience with awning fabric, and my experience is that out in direct sun all the time, we're going to expect 10 years maybe out of current state-of-the-art fabrics, maybe 8, worst case, maybe 12 if you can stretch it out a little longer. But it's, that's about what I've been able to see as practical in terms of those fabric elements that I'm familiar with. So it seems to me like that's going to be an ongoing kind of a thing to have to keep after to make it work. I also would like to restate what I said 2 weeks ago, and that is pictures from a drone 200, 300, 400 feet in the air are one thing, but we're going to see it mostly from the ground on the human perspective, where you're walking, biking, or you're in a car driving under it. And so I don't know if you can post those pictures back up briefly, if you have the 3 comparisons from the ground that you could show us. I think it's very important that we look at it from the human perspective and say, this is what we're going to see, what the public's going to see day to day. And candidly, I feel like the artistic one kind of disappears from the ground. The blue river form is not, to me, nearly as predominant when you're looking at it from the ground, other than being on the bridge right in it, which worries me, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think that I want to encourage the council to think about the views that people are going to have every day as they experience the bridge.
Mel, do you have a comment to that? And then also, Casey, would you be able to pull up those designs? We could at least take a look at them, so if we want to review them.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify one thing that Mayor Knapp mentioned. We are not looking at fabric as an option. That is actually hasn't ever been something we've been looking at. In most cases, we've been looking at a variety of different either perforated metal or other components that would have a much longer life. That said, there's a lot of exploration of materials and durability, but fabric or a standard shade structure moldable material has not been anything we've looked at. We're definitely looking at something much more longer living.
All right, that's helpful, thank you. And so there in the bottom picture and the ones we're seeing now is what you're going to see kind of from the ground level, as I understand it. Mm-hmm. That's the, and then the tied arch one that's next. All right, and there's the third one, the cable.
And I think, Mayor Knapp, during the work session a couple weeks ago, that you had this question too about user experience, and certainly with these 3, there are different user experiences as a part of that, and so that would be, it's certainly a decision point on how these look and feel. But I think that's also one reason why there's strong support for the tied arch, and there's strong support for the modern artistic, but the modern artistic definitely is more visceral in terms of people's response, whether positive or negative.
Okay, thank you. And I had promised Councilor AKERVALL I'd give her a chance here before I got so far into this.
That's fine. I think, maybe some of my questions are actually similar in a way in that, I think last time we spoke about this, I maybe had a question for you all on materials or ornamentation, I guess, of that modern artistic one. It's interesting I think we are all sensitive to cost and to price, and in looking at the cost and the price, the modern artistic and the cable are very, very similar in price. I know that one has the $1 sign and one has the $2 sign, but we're talking about like $100,000, like it's a very small difference there. And I wonder where each of these bridges will fall within the range that's provided. It occurs to me like that both the tied arch and the cable stay, the design or the strength of the design is like the form itself. And instead of ornamentation that would be added or perhaps need to be replaced over time. Mm-hmm. So I wonder about the ongoing cost, the ongoing maintenance, since this is the life of this bridge, 75 years, it would be nice that we'd have a lasting structure that would look good for a very, very long time and that would age well. And so I guess I kind of have questions about that. Each of the 3 bridges, they do have a range of cost, but it seems like maybe that modern artistic would be a little bit more volatile within the range, depending on the types of materials or ornamentation that's applied, and then also thinking about not just the initial cost, but ongoing cost. And I wonder if, I mean, in your, obviously your experience and expertise, if you had anything to comment along those lines or perspective that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think, it gets to the question with the modern artistic, there's certainly more variability, I think, in kind of, the types of materials selected, what that means from, a design perspective. So, that range of costs, it's definitely a range for a reason for that bridge, because there are a lot of things to be determined. I think, Bob, do you want to speak to kind of the maintenance piece of that? Because I think overall the other two are about the same in terms of maintenance.
Yeah, sure. I guess just on the range, the cost ranges, I think the modern artistic is more likely to be toward the upper end of its range, just given the iconic nature that we want to bring out in the bridge. All the, the add-ons to make it the modern artistic feel and to give it the, really evoke Wilsonville. You're going to be adding things that bring the price up. Whereas the other two bridges, like you said, are intrinsically, the aesthetic is intrinsic to the bridge type. And so I think we're more likely to be toward the lower end of the cost range. And there's obviously a lot of design to do between now and, construction, but that's just, just based on where we're sitting and what we know, that's kind of my thoughts. In terms of ongoing maintenance, the modern artistic, really the distinguishing feature, all of them, and Zach can speak to this a little bit. He's has discussed some pedestrian bridges with the city of Eugene that they have, that they've been maintaining for several years or decades. But they're really pretty low maintenance structures in the long term, and don't cost a lot for inspections or upkeep. The modern artistic with the appurtenances and features that get added to it, whether they're, LED lighting or different, metal structures that are coated, the coatings will fade, materials may degrade. And so to maintain what you see in the rendering is going to cost more. There's going to be more upkeep costs on that than the other two, just because of the intrinsic aesthetic versus the added on aesthetic.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Thank you. I'm also, I guess, I'm curious as far as we're talking about the drops and ripples and the oxbow, right? And how that might be paired with a specific bridge type. And it seems like maybe some of the bridges would pair better with, like you were saying, the more formal elements of the tree allay, or maybe even be more flexible. The oxbow is a bit more of a whimsical kind of design or feel, I guess, for a plaza. I guess, we got to think about how it would best all work together. But as designers, do you see success in each of the matchings, or do you see a stronger suit in any one of the particular matchings?
Maybe Mel and Casey, do you want to address that?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think when we were coming up with the options, while they certainly had initial pairings that I think were stronger, our intent was that they would be interchangeable, and we knew that none of the, particularly for the plazas, no one idea of the three that we presented we knew was going to move forward as it was. And so the intent is that we can merge them all. They all still have, really have this, Willamette River, kind of this flow as kind of a constant theme. So that gives us quite a bit of leeway to make sure that the story remains consistent. It's just how it actually gets activated. But we will definitely be able to make them work with whichever bridge moves forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? And I don't have everybody's image here either. There we go. I think. The other topic that we've not talked about, Council, is the process by which with the help of our consultants, we arrived at this point, and all the dialogue that had occurred and the fact that Planning Commission came out of review of the public process and their own deliberations with a recommendation as to what they think would be appropriate given all the different factors that are part of this. And I think that we have a strong history of working with our Planning Commission to make those kinds of decisions or reach those kinds of conclusions. And I think that it's appropriate that we do have that strong honoring of the Planning Commission and their process also. So I don't know how anyone else feels about that. And I'm not seeing anybody wanting to. Maybe we've had enough discussion.
And what was the Planning Commission recommendation again?
It's on our screen right now. The Tide Arch Bridge, lighting and safety fencing as being priorities, combining the plaza design with elements from Drops and Ripples and the River Oxbow concepts, and feeling like those were hitting all the major points without needing to introduce any other major components.
Great. I like the Planning Commission. Let's go there.
Councilor West, question?
We see the Planning Commission's feedback where they say a style of bridge. If we move forward with this, am I understanding that we're agreeing that that's the style of bridge that the council agrees with also? Or is this where we talk about that we could tweak something where maybe we want a different style of bridge or a different landing thing? Or are we voting to move, or is it, or we could just vote to confirm to move forward exactly how the Planning Commission came out with their reasoning? What's kind of the, I guess, the objective right now?
Does staff want to respond to that?
Oh, yeah, I can respond. There's been a step-by-step process to get to the 3 bridges we're at now with community input all along. So we are looking for a bridge design to move forward tonight. The recommendation from Planning Commission is that they did pretty much unanimously agree that the Tide Arch was preferred. So I hope that's helpful.
Councilor Lehan.
So, near as I can tell, we have just gone through with questions and a few comments, but we haven't really said what we wanted, right? What we liked as individuals. So you want to go around and say?
That is true. We could go around and have input from each of the council who would like to do that, or we could ask for a motion and then have discussion. What would you like to do?
I'm happy either way. I'm prepared to go around and say.
Okay, I'll lead off and let everybody have a say. I think we should support the Planning Commission recommendation in full. Councilor Lehan.
I started out in this process really liking the modern artistic because it's quite different and all. I never really cared for the, what's the tall up one called? Cable stay, because I think the cable stay has gotten to be a little too trendy. So everybody's building a cable stay these days, and it would be a little bit boring. And I have now arrived back at the, you don't have their names up here for me, at the Tide Arch. And I say that because I think it is, as it says here, it's an iconic and historic kind of shape. It certainly harks back to the old bridge at Oregon City and other arched bridges. So I feel like it ties us together with that historic element, and yet looks very graceful. I agree with the Planning Commission. So I've kind of moved in the direction from modern artistic to Tide Arch. I agree, however, with the Planning Commission that the lighting and other elements are absolutely critical. It was a failure of ours to not light Beauty and the Bridge. And we can't make that mistake again. Lighting is what makes it, is what sets off the overpass at Woodburn and allows Portland to light up its bridges in different ways throughout the seasons. And we should build that kind of ability into whatever structure we do. But I think especially with the Tide Arch, we can make the lighting be really special and able to change with seasons. What was their third one? Oh, and the combination of the landings. I always thought that was the most preferable one that combined the three different elements. And so not just because I generally like to respect the work of the Planning Commission, but because I have over time moved in that direction myself, I would agree with the position of the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Councilor West.
Thank you. I almost 100% agree with Councilor Lehand. I am most drawn to modern artistic. I think the river brings unique artistic lighting opportunities that not only is creative, but will allow the driver, the walker, and the residents around it to enjoy those opportunities. I like the modern artistic, but that's okay. I don't mind the Tide Arch one either. So but that would mean I'm just very intrigued by how beautiful the little river running across the I-5 freeway could be. I find super intriguing and the most interesting design element out of everything. I think it just brings something that you just won't see everywhere else, and we're right by the river. I agree with everything else that Councilor Lehand just said, so I won't repeat that, but that's kind of what my feelings around it.
Thank you. Councilor Linville.
Well, I guess I am hearing from the Planning Commission recommendations that they are pretty closely tied to what our citizens have said, and that those recommendations have come forward with them pretty much across the board accepting the priorities that our citizens saw. So I'm inclined to go with that only because I think we had a very, I participated in a number of those public events as well, and I think it's important if we ask our citizens for their input that we listen. And so I think I would prefer to go with those recommendations that came through the Planning Commission because they reflect our community.
Okay, thank you. Council President AKERVALL.
Sure. You know, I really do see, some pros or benefits to all three of the designs. I think initially the modern artistic, maybe because of the color, it kind of drew me in. And then the reference with the blue ribbon, the water, you know, was so apparent. But then I went over to the cable stay camp, and I'm the lone person over there. So, you know, but just as Councilor Linville said, this isn't about, you know, KRISTIN's personal preference here at all. So somebody did mention to me at one point in this process, oh, the tide arch, it's a rock skipping over the water. And I thought, oh, you know, I mean, all of a sudden I saw the connection with the river and the water and our history. And so that's kind of a very cool thing too. I think now it's like you can't unsee it, right? Now that you're thinking of that M shape as the silhouette of the rock skipping over the water. But I think that having kind of a classic design is going to serve well in the long lifespan of the bridge, and we certainly want a long lifespan for this bridge. And so I would agree with, you know, many of the other comments made this evening, and that the preference appears to be for the tide arch. And I think that it would bring a lot of benefits and strong design. So.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like we've got a consensus. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? And if so, can we have the elements of more than just the bridge design, but maybe by the other elements coming in as presented by the Planning Commission, or if you want to individually affirm things. I need to ask if I can have the visual of my council and not all my consultants. Thank you very much for the consultant work. There we go. Councilor Lehan.
Yes, I would move that we affirm the recommendation of the Planning Commission on all three elements of their recommendation.
And the staff report is asking that we combine this with an approval of Resolution 2853 in making that recommendation.
And approve Resolution 2853.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilor President AKERVALL.
I'll second that.
Second from Councilor President AKERVALL. Any additional discussion? Seeing no request, I'll ask for the vote on the motion to approve Resolution 853 and adopt the recommendations of the Planning Commission. All in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We've got a unanimous vote, 5 in favor. So thank you all for the work that you have done so far, and it'll be exciting to see move forward toward next steps.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time and a lot more to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe that brings us to ordinance numbers 842 and 843, but let me look at my agenda here. Is that right? Yes, continuing business, ordinance number 842 and 843, please.
Ordinance number 842, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville annexing approximately 17.57 acres of property located on the west side of Southwest Stafford Road, south of Southwest Frog Pond Lane, into the city limits of the City of Wilsonville, Oregon. The land is more particularly particularly described as tax lots 1500 and 1700, a portion of Southwest Frog Pond Lane right-of-way, and a portion of Southwest Stafford Road right-of-way, Section 12D, Township 3 South, Range 1 West, Willamette Meridian, Clackamas County, Oregon.
Thank you. So we'll do these individually. This is a second reading. Is there any additional information that we have received since first reading?
I'm told by planning staff no, and I don't know if anyone from planning staff is here, but I've heard none.
Nothing additional.
Nothing additional. Okay. Council, any questions with regard to ordinance number 842 on second reading? This is the annexation action. Is there a motion?
Can I ask a quick question?
Councilor West, question.
If we were to make a motion, can we do them each separately, or can we combine the motions?
No, they need to be separate.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to approve, or no, I move to, it's not approve, is it?
Adopt 842.
Adopt, thank you. Your Honor, thank you. Your Honor, I move to adopt ordinance number 842.
On second reading.
On second reading, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor West, is there a second?
I will second.
Councilor Linville was first up, I think.
Okay.
Second by Councilor Linville. Any discussion necessary at this point? If not, I'll ask for the roll call vote on adopting 842 second reading.
Councilor Linville?
Yes.
Councilor West?
Yes.
Council President AKERVALL?
Yes.
Councilor Lehan?
Yes.
Mayor Knapp?
Yes, passes unanimous, 5 votes in favor. Thank you. That brings us then to ordinance number 843, the companion zoning map amendment.
Ordinance number 843, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Wilsonville approving a zone map amendment from the Clackamas County Rural Residential Farm Forest 5-acre zone to the residential neighborhood zone on approximately 15.93 acres on the west side of Southwest Stafford Road, south of Southwest Frog Pond Lane. The land is more particularly described as tax lots 1500 and 1700. Section 12D, Township 3 South, Range 1 West, Willamette Meridian, Clackamas County, Oregon.
Thank you. Any additional information on ordinance number 843 for second reading?
I'm advised by the planning staff that there has been no additional comment or information.
Thank you very much. Council, what is your pleasure with regard to ordinance number 843 on second reading?
Your Honor, go ahead.
Practice. Your Honor, I move to adopt ordinance number 843 on second reading.
Thank you. Sir West makes motion. Is there a second?
Your Honor, I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Second from Councilor Linville. Further discussion? Seeing none, I will ask for the roll call vote on the ordinance to adopt ordinance number 843 on second reading.
Councilor Linville?
Yes.
Councilor West?
Yes.
Council President AKERVALL?
Yes.
Councilor Lehan?
Yes.
Mayor Knapp?
Yes, passes unanimous, 5 votes in favor. Thank you very much. Okay, that is all of our scheduled business. We have no public hearings scheduled. That has not changed. Mr. Cosgrove, has it?
No.
Then we are up for your report.
Just one item, Your Honor. I wanted to, I fielded an email or two today about our soon-to-be-open new dog park. Apparently there's some rumors out there on social media, which take those for what they're worth, I guess. There's a lot of misinformation out there about the new dog park, so I just want to let you know that it is behind schedule.
a week or two due to the fires and some supply chain interruptions due to COVID for the restroom. So there is no truth to the rumor that we're going to be turning our new dog park into a BMX track. You can strike that one off the list. Nor is there any truth to the rumor that we can't put in a BMX track in Memorial Park because of land use restrictions from when we bought the property or inherited the property or whatever. So I wanted to put those rumors to rest. The new dog park will be open Friday, October 16th to the public. We'll be doing a soft opening, thanking our staff for all the great work they've done, Wednesday at 11 a.m. If anyone on council would like to come to that, you're certainly welcome. Another rumor on social media that I feel like I probably do need to address because it affects the city and the administrative side is that there's a rumor that the city's giving the Friends of French Prairie $60,000 a year. I wanted to get it out there that we do not have any relationship to the Friends of French Prairie other than we have a city councilor that attends those meetings. It's a group of local elected officials from Marion and Clackamas County, cities of Woodburn, Marion County commissioners to get together to talk about common items of interest. So I wanted to get that out there that the city's not involved in any way financially with the Friends of French Prairie. And just another example as to why I don't do social media.
Yeah, we have to try to pay attention but not give too much credence sometimes. Any legal business?
No legal business.
No legal business. Council, anything further for good of the order tonight? Nope. All right, thank you all once again. Here we are in October in election season upcoming, so lots of stuff going on. I'm sure we'll all have chances to talk further soon. So I'm going to declare us adjourned at 8:48 p.m. You one and all.
Good night.
Aye.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.